Leaks everywhere. This time, the info with photos and videos involves a rework that the community has been wanting for a long time, and a character that might migrate from Legends of Runeterra to 2 other Riot games. And for one of them, their addition is basically already confirmed. So yeah, let's get into it. The humans who actually enjoy playing Lulu can already get hyped, because this one is confirmed. Remember how a long time ago I talked about this in that video about upcoming reworks and skins, saying that the character would be reworked in 2026 or 2027? Yep, turns out I was right. Finally, Lulu is gonna stop being ugly and actually match the look of modern Yordles. The confirmation came when a teamfight tactics video dropped about the new set, and in that video, they showed way too much. Or they just ignored the fact that Lulu was right there, with a much more updated look. Seriously, the visuals improved a lot. The only thing that annoys me is that Vigar is right next to her, and let's be honest, the guy looks way more like an old minion that's 1 or 2 centimeters taller than normal than an actual Yordle champion. But whatever, eventually his turn will come. And just so you know, I found these images in a discussion about this teamfight tactics Lulu on Reddit. I don't know if this is actually the same model, it looks like it is, but some of the images make it seem like the model is still incomplete. Either way, the new Lulu is clearly going to have a look like this, and I seriously doubt Riot would only keep her like this in teamfight tactics. That would be extremely dumb and also make no sense. And I say that because all you have to do is look how Lulu looks in regular League. What I really wonder is whether this Lulu ASU in teamfight tactics has something to do with some exclusive event over there. So Riot could bring ASUs for more characters even if they don't match whatever season is currently happening in regular PC League. I don't know, like something involving Bandle City in teamfight tactics. So they went ahead and brought Lulu there. While in normal PC League, we're going into Demacia and seeing the new Shyvana as a seasonal rework. You get what I mean? Even if Lulu has nothing to do with the theme that regular League has right now, she still gets a visual rework. And maybe this ends up happening with other champions in the future too. This one is right here one of the fan favorites from Legends of Runeterra. For anyone who doesn't know, Cythria is a young woman introduced in Legends of Runeterra, and each of her cards shows her journey, starting as a simple girl who decided to travel to the big city of Demacia and enlist in the Demacian army, all the way to a possible future where she becomes a well-known and respected figure in the Dauntless Vanguard, even earning the title Cythria Lady of Clouds. And get this, she actually has another alternative future, even more promising than the first, where she becomes a master of war in Demacia and rides a Silverwing, that Gryphon-like creature native to high rocky lands north of Demacia. You can see that in the splash art of the card, her leading a bunch of troops. And in that case, she's known as Cythria, Lady of Clouds. And believe it or not, she's at the top of the Demacian military hierarchy and holds a ton of prestige and honor in front of the king. So much so that in the description of this card, we have King Jarvan III saying the following: "Who else could Demacia send to save her prince than the Lady of Clouds herself?" That line is right there on the card text. But anyway, now speaking seriously and going into real lore description of the card. In later times, the character actually becomes a Demacian officer, so much so that she's responsible for escorting a mage named Ergen, who is basically the chief advisor from Arbormark, and she's supposed to take him to the capital. This is all revealed in the short story Turmoil. Quick context: Arbormark is a smaller nation that's neighbors and allied with Demacia, sharing borders with them and also near Freljord, Skagiorn, and Rhydgenland. Those details are also shown in the short story Turmoil, which is actually really good, showing even more how hypocritical and messy Demacia can be when it comes to mage seekers. In the story, Jarvan IV had to call in allies from the crown, which includes mages, to help with problems involving magic. And Arjun is warned about the laws of stone. If he uses magic, or as they keep calling it in conversations, his talents, he would be judged by the mage seeker's jurisdiction, which 2 of them actually watching him the entire time. Cythria is the protagonist of that short story, and we see how she notices and reflects on the turbulent moment Demacia is going through, and how people's view of the mage seekers actually had real basis to it, to the point where she even starts questioning things herself, even though she was raised from a very young age with fear and hatred towards magic and mages. And during this short story, there's a specific moment where a group of citizens start surrounding the escort, basically wanting to lynch someone. But it's not aimed at Arjun, it was actually aimed at the mage seekers. There's even a mother who completely breaks down crying, worried about her daughter, because she was taken away, either imprisoned or exiled, and the girl was just a child. Cythria comforts comforts her and gives her her word that she'll find the little girl. Now, putting the lore aside for a bit, what confirmed Cythria leaving Legends of Runeterra and coming to Teamfight Tactics were files found with her name that brought some very specific information. These files talk about the character's gameplay, saying she'll have two forms, one showing her when she's young, meaning just an aspirant in the Demacian army, and another with her already as an adult, fully established as a military officer. The leaked files also mention spells, passives, attacks, and even something involving a knockup. So yeah, the character's basically confirmed that she should arrive in Teamfight Tactics as a part of the first season of 2026. This also makes it seem like Riot might start using the regional themes of each season to release content in other games as well. So the Rose Knight might be a champion for PC League. Although right now things are pointing way more towards Tiana Crown Guard. Cythria would be the Teamfight Tactics one, and who knows, maybe later they even add her to Wild Rift. Honestly, I can't remember another Demacian character in Legends of Runeterra that's as famous as she is. It honestly would have been easier for them to launch Jarvan III in Teamfight Tactics to save Cythria for Wild Rift. A well-known and reliable leaker called Big Bad Bear even points that out, that the character will probably be an exclusive unit for Teamfight Tactics. But he also says that because they're keeping this such a secret, there's a chance that she could be the new Demacian champion arriving around in February, even though right now the bets have shifted towards Tiana. And I actually get where these suspicions come from. On the new Demacian themed map, you can see what looks like an altar covered in flowers with a golden piece on it. And leaning against that altar, there's a wooden training sword. If we stop and look at it, it's the exact same sword Cythria has in her youth, back when she traveled to Demacia to enlist. And another detail, the flowers also point directly to her, because in her story it's mentioned that in the village of Cloudfield, Cythria took a part in the event called the Festival of the Yellow Spring, and she was the one carrying the flowers. So like, could the Rose Knight actually be Cythria? I still don't think so, but I also wouldn't rule out that he might be connected to Cloudfield, that festival, and maybe even Cythria herself. And another cool detail is that on the new map, we also see these same flowers surrounding the throne of Jarvan III. In my opinion, I think the Cythria from Teamfight Tactics will eventually come to Wild Rift. They could take some things from the abilities she'll have as a Teamfight Tactics character and rework others. Now, it would be insanely cool if they adapted and canonized her future version as the Lady of Clouds. Man, it would be something really new and badass if she could, on her ultimate or maybe on another ability, mount a flying creature. The closest thing we have to that right now is Quinn, who people constantly ask for a rework. Because when Valor grabs her, it honestly looks like a cutout PNG image just sliding across the screen at high speed. It's really awkward. If Cythria, Lady of Clouds, were the champion version of that character, it would be interesting if she could lift an enemy off the ground, fly up, then drop them to deal heavy damage with a stun, or even reposition them, almost like how Zac used to work in the past. For anyone who doesn't know or just doesn't remember, Zac went through this massive change to his ultimate, where he would collapse into the ground like a puddle, then rise up grabbing everyone and carrying them somewhere else. It was kind of like his current E, but instead he turned into a puddle and dragged everyone near him along, with shorter range. There was something really interesting Riot could make happen in the future. Don't forget to subscribe, drop a like on the video, and maybe consider becoming a member to get access to a bunch of cool perks. And while you're down there, don't forget to click the link to go to our store. There's a lot of really cool designs available and cool merch, so go check it out. And as you probably already guessed, since you just saw the transition on the screen, it's the Void in Demacia. Basically, the Void showing up in Demacia, if it's not already there. Because in Garen's biography, it's mentioned that he had an uncle who was a Ranger Knight in the Demacian army. It's basically Demacia's equivalent of the Survey Corps from Attack on Titan. And he told Garen and Lux about his adventures, and also said that Demacia's peace would one day be destroyed, whether by rogue mages, abyssal creatures, or some unimaginable horror. I looked this up both in the PTBR biography and in the original English version, and they both mention abyssal creatures. And that's important because this term is used for the Voidborn. The proof of that is right here in the short story Twilight of the Gods, where Tanari, who is a panther ascended, is reminding Symphax, an ascended with a chameleon form, of when they both fought hordes and more hordes of these abyssal monsters that poured out of the rift that opened on the eastern coast of Shurima. Right now, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Demacia already knew about the Void, especially because of what they did in the Nunu game, which in my opinion is kind of a mistake. Basically, Lysandra erased a lot of historical records and reshaped the narrative, but in Song of Nunu, a League of Legends story, in several dialogues, Braum and Nunu just casually talk about the Void, mentioning the threat it was in the past. It really gives the impression that everyone over there already knows about the Void. So that's why I don't doubt that Voidborn could have wandered close to Demacia at some point, with some of them being found and even killed, which would explain why Garen's uncle said what he said. And actually check this out, it's pretty interesting. Icathia discovered the Void after a violent earthquake hit the coastal province of Salbira, and the destruction that followed revealed something that had been hidden deep beneath the earth. That something was dark and extremely powerful, making people believe it could be used as a weapon against the god warriors of Shurima. And then in Demacia, something similar happened. A riverside settlement located further south in the region, called Turbicia, was struck by a massive earthquake that opened huge fissures in the ground. And even though the buildings were extremely sturdy, built with hard mountain granite and Demacian oak, the devastation was enormous, with almost everything being completely destroyed. Later on, that place ended up being used by Lux and the refugee mages, who slowly rebuilt it. Lux was even appointed by Jarvan IV at the end of the Mage Seekers as the ruler of that place. But considering Riot constantly changes the lore and the Mage Seeker might not even be considered canon anymore, it would be a great opportunity to tie that incident directly to the Void, especially because according to the Q&A sessions with the directors of Arcane, it was mentioned that the Void is attracted to and moves towards places with large concentrations of magic. Demacia might have Petricite, but it only absorbs magic, which actually makes things worse, because in practice, it's basically turning Demacia into a giant beacon across Runeterra to attract the Void. It would be a perfect feast. Just to give you an idea, back in the Lux comic, issue number 4, where Jarvan IV goes to duel Silas, Silas himself uses the magic that was stored in that location because of the battles that happened there long ago. And these were not recent battles. The first magic he drains from the Petricite and the structure around him makes him release something like flames. The second one, when he's cornered, is clearly Morgana's magic, with Silas still mocking Jarvan IV and talking about ancient great beings whose presence could still be felt there. I don't know if the flames were something from Kale, maybe they were, but Morgana's is the most obvious one, since it's basically her ultimate. And most likely both of them fought there in the past, and traces of their celestial powers ended up being absorbed and preserved in that place. Man, Demacia is absolutely screwed if the Void gets involved. And now I even start wondering whether Petricite can actually affect a Voidborn, because according to the wiki, the Void doesn't use magic, but a different kind of force and supernatural energy. That's because the Void is the antithesis of life, and everything that has life carries magic. So the Void is the opposite of that. But this gets contradictory because in Rel's Champion Insights, it says that the Black Rose is interested in all kinds of terrible things to expand the Empire's reach and power. And one of the things listed alongside demon summoning and hemomancy is void magic. So let's see if Riot wants to fully introduce the Void around Demacia. And fun fact, in a way, this has happened in the older lore. Back when Vel'Koz got a short cinematic to introduce him to the public, we see a Demacian soldier, the Helmet Bro, that meme guy that the community created because he's always getting wrecked and dying to different champions. Anyway, Helmet Bro is investigating a dark forest and notices a sword that looks like it was melted by some kind of corrupt energy, probably belonging to another soldier. Then he barely dodges his Vel'Koz disintegrating ray, but in the end he gets cornered and completely obliterated at point blank range. Man, if the Void starts infesting Demacia, it would be insanely cool to see a Void corrupted Galio skin, one that no longer needs Lux's magic or other abundant sources to stay awake, but instead craves more and more magic with an insatiable hunger. Or maybe even a fight between him and Cho'Gath, since they already have an interaction.
Hey World Eater, I got something you can snack on. It's my fist!
And Cho'Gath, by the way, literally has no lore right now. That whole World Devourer thing is from old lore and doesn't exist anymore. He straight up just doesn't have a story. It also wouldn't be bad if it involved Baron Nashor itself, which would finally canonize it into the lore. And fun fact, Galio actually has more interactions with Baron Nashor than he does with Cho'Gath.
Greetings, fellow large thing. Let's fight. Now this will be a fight for the ages. Yes, now that's a fellow I can punch.
But yeah, that's basically it. I'll see you guys in the next video.